Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. It's such a thrill to be with all of you. My name is Daniel Copeland, and I serve as the Associate Vice President of Research for Barna Group. And I want to transition us now into a time of getting to dig even deeper into the open generation, how teens around the world relate to Jesus, and the findings that we've gotten to learn so much about with this generation. As David shared earlier, this generation, this study was huge. It did an incredible job of reaching across the globe and hearing from an incredible sample of teenagers representatively, such that we can really learn from, listen to, and empathize with the experience of teenagers today. Today, I want to specifically focus on what we've learned across the globe, but I also want to focus on what we've learned in Europe and Africa and what these incredible nations and teenagers around them are experiencing today, how they're viewing Jesus, how they're viewing Scripture and the world around them. I'm really excited to be able to share this with you guys. As we've described, this study had three major focuses: Jesus, Bible, and impact. And today we're specifically focusing on Jesus. And just to offer you guys a thought, a framework for how to consider what we're going to be talking through today. A few years ago, we had the incredible chance to release The Connected Generation, a global study of 18 to 35-year-olds. And I got to do some work with the incredible Mark Sayers out of Melbourne, Australia. And he offers in his book, Disappearing Church, this really incredible global perspective on some of the problems we're experiencing in Christendom, in the church. He says, we are offered the mirage that we can have community without commitment, faith without discipleship, and the kingdom without the king. That is, that in this current moment, there's been something diluted, there's been something lost, that we aren't leading people into commitment with Jesus. We're trying to say that you can just have the community, but you don't have to commit. You can just have the faith, but you don't need to be discipled. And you can experience the kingdom without recognizing the king. And so I want to encourage this question for the data we're going to look at today. How do we bridge the gap between affiliation and commitment? How do we bridge the gap between just saying, I'm a Christian, and actually being committed to following Christ? So let's take a look at our first bit of data. What we see across the globe is that there is a consistent gap between this affiliation and commitment. David shared this stat on the left just a second ago. In our global sample, 52% of teens identify as Christian. However, only 22% of Christian teens have made a personal commitment to following Jesus. So what an incredible gap. There's a 30 percentage point gap. And if you look at the Europe and Africa countries that we've studied, you see this gap in every single nation. France, 38% of teens would say, I'm a Christian, but only 6% have made a personal commitment to following Christ. Germany, 50 to 10, Ireland, 62 to 14, the Netherlands, 28 to 6, on and on and on. And you see that this gap exists. And this is the gap between community and commitment. Maybe this is the gap between faith and discipleship. And so we want to encourage ourselves to open ourselves up to maybe the thing that we need to think about when it comes to how teens perceive and interact with Jesus is about bridging this gap. So one of the things that was so encouraging in this study is we found that teens want a faith that connects with the world. When they think about Christ, they say things like, I want to find a way to follow Jesus that connects with the broader culture I live in. And I also want to be able to be a Christian without separating myself from the broader culture around me. Think about those two statements for a second. So first, teenagers are saying, I want to follow Christ, and I want it to connect and be relevant to the world I live in. And I also want to be a Christian that doesn't have to separate from the world, that doesn't have to distance myself from the world, that doesn't have to segregate or say, I can't be part of this. They also want to help the church keep the priorities that Jesus intended. They're excited by the figure of Jesus. They're excited to see his ministry through in the modern church. So it leads us to a question. What about Jesus connects with teens? When teenagers think about Christ, they think about his characteristics. What connects with them? What excites them? And when we first wrote this into our research, we thought we'd get a big diversity of perspectives. And what was really fascinating is that some key characteristics of Christ transcend global culture. So 39% of all teens, this is not just Christians, this is all teens, 39% say that their favorite thing about Jesus is that he offers forgiveness. 38% say that he forgave those who wronged him. 33% their favorite thing is that he is compassionate. 32% a teacher and a miracle worker. So what you're seeing in the data here is across all the different countries of Africa and Europe, their favorite perspectives about Jesus, their favorite characteristics about Jesus. For example, in Germany, 40% of teens say that they love the fact that Jesus is compassionate. It's their favorite thing about him. In Kenya, they love that Jesus offers forgiveness. In South Africa, offers forgiveness. You also see in South Africa, 36% say Jesus offers healing, and that's something that draws them to him. You see all this variety across the globe, and it paints this incredibly emotional portrait of Jesus, that he's not this grand sage off there, that this is somebody they want to live close with. This is somebody that they're excited to be around because of his person, because of his character. So how would a teenager want to learn about Jesus? This is one of my favorite parts of data in this study, is seeing, we asked teenagers, hey, if you wanted to learn more about Jesus, who or what would you consider a trustworthy source? Who would you go to? And the number one most trustworthy source across the entire globe is Scripture. 61% say the Bible. The least trustworthy thing was actually seen as social media. And you see this really interesting trend here in this data, where all the digital options we gave teenagers to say, would you go to here to learn about Jesus? Those were seen as the least trustworthy. So for example, 29% say that an online Christian influencer is trustworthy, 27% the internet, 25% YouTube, 21% social media. They actually see that their desire to learn about Jesus has to happen in relationships. 60% say a family member, a pastor, priest, or minister, a church leader, a Christian, a friend. Teens today want to learn about Jesus in relationship. They see him as this emotional and relational character, person worth following, and they want to do that in relationship with others. But there's also a danger zone in this data that I want to point out. 52% of teenagers say that they themselves are trustworthy when it comes to learning more about Jesus. And while we want to empower teens and we want to listen to them and hear from them, we've also recognized that in the global culture, in digital culture, when people are feeling unsure, they turn inward and they believe that they can be the utmost authority on their life. And we want to make sure that they are not being isolated, that they are not feeling alone. We want to make sure that they are learning about Christ in relationship with others. So I want to lead out this last bit of data I want to share today by talking about what happens when a teenager makes that commitment with Christ. This is the 22% of teens around the globe who have a committed relationship with Jesus, compared to the 30% of nominal Christians, so the Christians who are identifying as Christian but have not made a decision, are not in relationship with Jesus. And what our data would suggest is that maybe there's 5 things that happen when a committed Christian is living this way, when they have made this relationship where they have bridged from affiliation to commitment. And the first thing is relevance. So we asked teens a variety of questions about how Jesus is interacting in their world. And what we see is that teens who are committed Christians, they are significantly more likely to say things like, my relationship with Jesus brings me deep joy and satisfaction. They're significantly more likely than nominal Christians to say, Jesus speaks to me in a way that is relevant to my life. They're also significantly more likely to say that worship is a lifestyle, not just an event. They see their relationship with Christ in their world as overlapping entirely, not 2 separate entities, but completely relevant to each other. That's one of the biggest differences that happens when somebody is in this committed relationship. They also experience community, the second thing. So we asked people about their community. We asked them what experiences they're having in community. And what we find is that when somebody is a committed Christian, they're more likely to say things like, this community is important to me. I feel comfortable in my community. I expect to be a part of this community for a long time. Like, I don't want to leave. I know people here. I'm satisfied. I care what people think about me, and I can have a positive impact here. What's really interesting about this data is notice how nominal Christians, so Christians in name only, they are just as likely as all other teens. So teens who are of other religious faiths, atheists, agnostics, or no faith, they are having the same experience as community as nominal Christians. It's not just the religious identification that's making a difference, it's the commitment to Christ. Committed Christians are also experiencing mission. So 71% of them would say, "I want to I want others to see Jesus in my words, in my actions. I'm excited about the mission of the church in today's world, and I have a responsibility to share my beliefs." So committed Christians see a mission; they see a place for their faith in the world. They are living in a missional way that nominal Christians aren't. They're so much less likely to see. Less than 1 out of 4, or 1 out of 5 of them feel this way. Committed Christians are also experiencing purpose, the fourth thing. They are more likely to say things like, God designs each person with a unique calling in their life. They want to use their unique talents and gifts to honor God, and that they feel like their church, those around them, are part of helping them understand their calling. They're not isolated. They're not wayward stranded. They have purpose in their life. They aren't meandering. They actually see that how they believe in Jesus, their relationship with Christ, is providing purpose to their every single day. And then finally, committed Christians experience impact. They are more likely than nominal Christians and all other teens to say things like, I'm very motivated to do something about injustices in society. They're recognizing that things aren't right in the world and they would like to be a part of change. They're also so much more likely to say that Jesus is somebody who advocated for justice. They don't believe that Jesus was just a religious teacher or just some guy speaking, performing miracles, that he actually was upset with the religious structure too, and that he was upset with how the world was working, and he was advocating for change. And so I want to leave you with just one last thought to maybe close out this section on the difference between commitment to Jesus and affiliation as a Christian. And it's a teaching that Jesus gives in Matthew, where he tells us, you are the salt of the earth. But if salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It's no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. Christ is saying to us that you are the salt. You are what makes this world long lasting. You provide flavor to this world. And maybe when we are just affiliation and not commitment, we're losing our saltiness. We're losing our purpose in the world. And that doesn't have a good impact on those around us. It isn't good for our being. We are here to make the world a better place. So thank you so much for allowing me to come and share some of these thoughts with you. It's always a thrill, and we're just so thankful for that you're here. As a follow-up to this presentation, I'd actually love to invite some teenagers themselves to come and share some of their experiences with Christ and their relationship with Jesus. Thanks so much.